Welcome back to Worldview. Now, did the U.S. Department of Justice miss the IRS scandal while they were busy prosecuting a dairy farmer? This is the Monday Line. I'm Denis Campbell. Now, very late Friday night, actually 1:30 a.m. Saturday morning last week, a Sauk County, Wisconsin jury returned 3 not guilty criminal verdicts against dairy farmer Vernon Herschberger. The prosecution alleged that the farmer illegally milked his cows and transported their raw milk across state lines where he sold it to members of his private buying club. Now, lawyers from the U.S. Justice Department, and I've put an exclamation point after that, and the Wisconsin Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection, or DATCP, targeted Herschberger for supplying his private buying club with fresh milk and other farm products. Believe it or not, he faced up to 30 months in prison and a fine in excess of $10,000 for each count. I kid you not. In 4 days of expansive, meaningless, and insipidly boring and dry testimony, the state argued such horrifically unfair points to a sympathetic Republican-appointed judge that the words raw and milk could not be used together in testimony. The government's lawyers stopped proceedings frequently in this 5-day trial just before the Memorial Day holiday weekend. They wanted to argue that only a single page of a document could be admitted into trial because later pages harmed their argument. The minutiae and dragging of jurisprudential feet seemed only to aggravate a jury that was frequently moved in and out of the courtroom, so lawyers could squabble over what bits would be admissible. Now, this case was the latest overreach by pro-business Governor Rick Walker. He's a Republican. He sought to do the bidding of a big food industry that can neither manage nor control its supply chain. Therefore, it seeks to dominate all grocery-level food choices. It became a test case because if Big Food won and shut Vernon down, the precedent could harm all small family dairy farm businesses. 2, these farmers have neither the lobbying nor judicial muscle of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They can't pay to have laws written to protect them like the mega food conglomerates. Consumers, though, are seeking locally sourced non-GMO, that means genetically modified organism, foods with which to feed their family. They saw this as a choice and survival issue for themselves and family farms. Could one still have the freedom to buy products if Vernon lost? Or would Big Food and their political, regulatory, and judicial pals, to whom they donate millions of dollars to do their bidding, tighten regulatory nooses further and put them out of business? The farmers were already choking under increasingly burdensome, expensive regulation. Now laws were written federally and within states to prevent local consumer choice? This should surprise no one. Big Food, Big Agriculture, and Big Pharma have been pulling strings in Washington and state houses around the USA to make things easier for them and eliminate those that cannot afford to compete. This was a watershed week for consumer choice on a number of fronts. For example, in Lyon, France, agricultural and GMO food giant Monsanto was found criminally liable for their Roundup pesticide harming a local farmer and making him very ill. The penalty phase to determine damages will take a few more weeks, but like with big tobacco, this is a global case zero, the first big liability loss. And for years, activists have shown how tests using these products show the growth of cancers and other diseases in laboratory animals. The fight is over choice. Monsanto wants to be free to use GMO seed product everywhere. Consumers want the choice to buy GMO-free foods or have those with GMOs in them labeled as such. Also last week, the U.S. Senate defeated an amendment to the National Farm Bill, 71-29, that would have allowed states to order food companies to label packaged foods that contain GMOs as such. And the industry worried that such labeling would harm their sales, creating a prejudicial atmosphere against their products. Of course, Big Food also spent $50 million in the U.S. state of California on advertising to defeat a ballot initiative that essentially said the same thing. Now, that's a 5 with 7 zeros after it. That's a lot of money. All of this, though, ignores an even larger question. If a consumer wishes to buy natural raw foods, why are food companies allowed to publicly extract them at every turn? How has governance and regulation been established to only benefit those with the deepest pockets? And with stories of terrorists, IRS irregularities, voting and reproductive rights suppression in the news the last year, Why has the United States Justice Department and a Wisconsin agricultural agency focused a year's worth of energy and attention for such a pathetic trial showing? Why did they go after local Wisconsin dairy farmer Vernon Herschberger? As a taxpayer, I'd wonder what that case cost the U.S. Treasury and the state of Wisconsin. How many more such actions can we expect them to vigorously pursue? Did Farmer Vernon and his raw milk supporters suddenly become the Mafia Al-Qaeda of the Midwest? And forget about hearing about this case on U.S. mainstream media. I would bet it was not only low on story bulletin boards, it probably never hit the radar. And yet, what's more important than a country's food supply? Yet we have U.S. states criminalizing the covert filming of farm animals abused in big food slaughterhouses. They're now prosecuted under domestic terrorism laws. We have a U.S. House voting to repeal Obamacare 37 times whilst ignoring jobs and infrastructure as bridges collapse. We have legislatures across the U.S. more focused on women's vaginas than doing their job in passing laws to protect consumer choice. There was a global free speech demonstration last Saturday speaking out against the global power of the Monsanto Corporation. Well, the corporation mostly laughed. Yet Whole Foods, the U.S. natural food giant grocer, said to the Vancouver Sun newspaper, quote, "There's a growing demand for products that don't use GMOs, with sales of products with a, quote, non-GMO verification label spiking between 15 and 30%, close quote. The more people pay attention to what they eat instead of responding to adverts and making unconscious food buying decisions, the more difficult it will be for Monsanto and Big Food to continue to push their high salt, sugar, and fat GMO agenda. And when that happens, Big Food will adapt or cease to exist. And that'll be good news for Vernon Herschberger, and indeed for all of us. Remember, it's he who laughs last that wins.